Not having an opinion used to mean you were still thinking, but today it looks like you're uninformed or careless or morally absent. Everywhere you go, something is waiting for your reaction. A headline, a post, a choice someone else made, and if you don't respond fast enough, the silence itself becomes suspicious. This is the quiet pressure of modern life, the feeling that you must always have an opinion, even when you haven't thought deeply, even when you don't know enough, even when the thing has nothing to do with you. And the question is not whether this pressure exists, but what it's slowly doing to the way we think, feel, and relate to each other. Because when reaction becomes mandatory, reflection becomes rare. In social psychology, there is a concept called the spiral of silence, introduced by Elisabeth Noel Neumann. It describes a simple but powerful dynamic. People are less likely to express uncertainty or minority views when they fear social isolation. When we believe our view is unpopular or unclear, we stay quiet. And when many people stay quiet, the loudest opinions start to feel like the only ones that exist. Research consistently shows that people who perceive themselves to be in the minority are far less likely to speak up in public or online spaces. Not because they have nothing to say, but because the emotional cost of being wrong, isolated, or attacked feels too high. Over time, this creates a distorted reality. Certainty dominates. Nuance disappears, and silence stops being a neutral space for thinking. It becomes a liability. When silence feels dangerous, people stop listening to themselves. At a deeper level, this isn't just cultural, it's biological. For most of human history, survival depended on shared norms. Groups that moved in sync, same rituals, same timing, and same rules were safer. Our nervous system learned to associate difference with risk. Social psychologists call this deviance regulation, an automatic response where we experience discomfort when someone steps outside what feels normal to us. This discomfort is subtle. It doesn't feel like fear. It feels like irritation, judgment, or the impulse to comment. So when the mind says too early, too much, or that's weird to something we see, it's not making a moral argument. It's trying to restore internal equilibrium. Judgment is often the nervous system asking for predictability. In the modern world, opinion has taken on a new role. It's no longer just a conclusion. It really is a signal. It tells others where you stand, who you align with, and whether you belong. On social media, this is amplified, of course. Algorithms reward clarity, certainty, and emotional intensity, not hesitation and not complexity or even silence. Studies on online behavior show that people tend to amplify their expressed opinions compared to what they privately believe on social media, because stronger takes get more engagement, and engagement is what we want. Over time, this amplification contributes to polarization, not because people think more deeply, but because they perform more confidently. We don't just share opinions anymore, we use them to be seen, validated, and counted. Belonging has become louder than truth in this digital age. Once opinion becomes identity, something subtle changes. We stop asking, is this accurate? And start asking, how will this be received? Public commitment hardens belief. Psychological research shows that once people express a stance publicly, they are far less likely to revise it, even when presented with new information. Changing your mind starts to feel like losing status, so certainty becomes safer than honesty. This is how people end up defending positions they no longer fully believe in, not because they're convinced, but because they're visible. The louder the performance, the quieter genuine thinking becomes. Freud described projection as the mind's way of relocating discomfort. When life feels uncertain, unstable, or out of control even, directing our attention outward feels relieving. Correcting others becomes a form of emotional regulation for ourselves. When we think, what are they doing? We often really mean, why does this unsettle me? Many opinions that sound like insight are actually anxiety in disguise. So we call it discernment. But often it's the ego trying to reassure itself, like so often. Judgment feels like clarity, but it's often a defense. There's another mechanism at play, psychological reactance. When someone acts freely in a way we wouldn't, it can feel like a threat, not to morality but to our identity. Their freedom raises a quiet, uncomfortable question. If this was possible, why didn't I choose it? Instead of sitting with that tension, the mind reframes it as wrong. Judgment protects the ego from envy. Sometimes that's wrong really means that's confronting. The Stoics believed that opinion, not events, was the primary source of suffering. Opinion takes neutral reality and turns it into personal disturbance. It pulls things outside our control into our emotional life. Imagine a curse that forces you to have a strong opinion about everything you see. Every delay, every decision, every behavior. Life wouldn't become more meaningful. It would become exhausting. Because a mind that reacts to everything rests nowhere. We've seen this dynamic play out publicly. When people feel compelled to comment on everything, on others' choices, appearances, decisions, and outcomes, conflict multiplies, not because the world became worse, but because attention became scattered. Psychologically, opinions carry cost. They drain cognitive energy. They anchor identity to things we don't control. People who insist on having an opinion about everything often believe they're strong and principled. But over time, something else happens. Conversations become tense, curiosity disappears, disagreement feels personal. Eventually, only agreement remains, not because they're right, but because dissent became unsafe. Certainty doesn't create connection, it replaces it. The world never tells you you're wrong, it only gives you outcomes. When outcomes don't match your beliefs, you can defend your ego, you can adjust your confidence, or let the belief go. The last option, of course, is the hardest, but also the most liberating. Growth begins where certainty ends. Emotionally mature people don't need to regulate others to feel stable. They can tolerate ambiguity. They can watch difference without correcting it. They know the difference between preference and principle. They still have opinions. They just don't weaponize them. Every moment spent policing harmless choices is a moment not spent understanding yourself. Non-interference isn't apathy, it's respect. It creates space for others and for your own mind. The pressure to have an opinion is everywhere, but your value doesn't come from constant reaction. The world will continue without your commentary, but it benefits from your understanding. So, the next time you feel the urge to react immediately, pause. Ask yourself, am I responding to reality or regulating my own discomfort? Because sometimes the most intelligent response isn't another opinion. It's the courage to let things be. And in that silence, something rare appears: clarity.